I could call to order the February meeting of the Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Curtis Brown.
Here.
Jonathan Repass.
Present.
Doug Lloyd.
Present.
Ashley Williams.
Present.
Cecily Anderson.
Cecil?
Here.
John Elliott.
Here.
Sherry Garrett.
Present.
Rebecca Longmire. Paul Huff.
Here.
8 members are present.
If you would join me in the Pledge to Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My name's Paul Huff. I'm the chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals. To my right is Mr. Curtis Brown, the vice chairman, and to his right is Mr. Mike Moyers, representative of the law department. There are additional people present. Steve, if you would introduce them.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, could you repeat?
Could you introduce the folks?
Yes.
You-
Steve Elliott, Director of Development Services, Mike Reynolds with Knox Planning, and Miranda Ward from Knox County Codes.
Thank you. Our voting procedure requires a simple majority of the board members present. Today, there are 8 members present. It will require a vote of 5 members to approve or disapprove any measure. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. The Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals is authorized to grant variances and hear other matters by the Tennessee Code and the Knox County Zoning Ordinance, specifically Section 6.60 Board of Zoning Appeals. These laws prescribe strict parameters, the meeting of which is required to grant a variance. The burden of proof that an application meets these parameters rests on the applicant. Quoting from the Knox County Code of Ordinances 6.60.04, variances. The purpose of a variance is to modify the strict application of the specific requirements of this ordinance in the case of exceptionally irregular, narrow, shallow, or steep lots or other exceptional physical conditions whereby such strict application would result in the practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship which would deprive an owner of the reasonable use of their land. The variance shall be used only where necessary to overcome some obstacle which is preventing an owner from using their property as the zoning ordinance intended. For each matter, the clerk will read the request into the record. The chair will then ask if the applicant is present. The chair will then ask if there is opposition or other speakers who wish to present. You do not have to come forward at this time. Once we determine the speakers for an item, we will call on governmental agencies such as Knox County Codes, Planning, or Engineering to make statements regarding the facts pertinent to the property and background of the request. Board members may ask questions of the governmental agencies once they have made their statements. The chair will then call on an applicant to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and present their evidence and reasoning supporting the granting of a variance. If there is no opposition, the applicant has 10 minutes to present their case. If there is opposition, the applicant and opposition may each have up to 15 minutes. After the applicant's presentation, the board members may ask questions of the applicants. The chair will then call for opposition or other parties who have up to 15 minutes to speak. This 15 minutes applies to all parties, so if there are multiple parties who wish to speak, please determine how you are going to divide your time beforehand. After the opponents present their opposition, the board members may ask questions of the opponents. Finally, there will be a discussion of the case by the board, during which time the board members may ask further questions of parties that have already testified. The board will then make any determinations it deems necessary. Our bylaws allow an applicant at the initial hearing on a matter to request a deferral of 30 or 60 days without prejudice. In the event of a deferral of an application or a failure to appear, any opponents may be heard on the record at a meeting where the application they oppose appears on the agenda. Mr. Law Director, if you would please swear in all those wishing to speak before the board.
All right, if you're here to speak to this board on any item on the agenda, either in opposition or in favor, please stand and raise your right hand if you expect to speak to this board today. All right, do you solemnly swear or affirm testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And be seated, please.
Are there any agenda changes or corrections today?
None right now.
Madam Clerk, if you would read the first item, item 4A.
4A is a request of Charles Ellis to appeal the approval of Knoxville, Knox County Planning's approval of 11B24 UR. The property is located at 0 Concord Road, CLT map 153, parcel 03711. Property is zoned CN in the 5th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition? Statements from Knox County Codes, if there are any.
We don't have any statements.
As the applicant, please state your name, address for the record.
Sir, there's a button there. It looks like a person's head.
There we go.
There you go.
Charles Ellis, Knoxville, Tennessee, 1000 Olive Road. Yes. We have two other people speaking on our behalf today.
Since this is not a variance, this is a review of a use on review approval, we will be probably granting some leeway on the time limits. But if you would, go ahead and give us testimony to support your position.
Please briefly stand if you are here with me today. John Harris, 1009 Olive Road, 37934. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Old Concord Residents Association and the numerous property owners appealing the Knox County Planning Commission's approval of the use on review for the Easy Stop on Concord Road. We assert that the Planning Commission was not guided by the general standards in Article 4 and did not exercise proper administrative judgment regarding the location and appropriateness of uses permitted on the review in this application. It is not in harmony with the zoning's ordinance intent. It negatively impacts the historic character of Old Concord and our quaint way of life. It introduces significant traffic concerns, drawing additional cars through the residential street. It injures property values due to noise, lights, fumes, and traffic. The burden of appeal has fallen unfairly on the community because of the Planning Commission's removal of conditions that were recommended by staff and they ignored the community concerns. We're asking you to reject this application based on that noncompliance. If that route is unsustainable, then the applicant must at the very least implement conditions we have requested and you have in your handouts before you. We raised the following concerns and anticipated adverse impacts. The proposed development is adjacent to the National Register Historic District of Old Concord and less than 500 feet from the Village of Concord Historic Overlay. The historic integrity of our community is evident in its narrow tree-lined streets, the size and scale of the building, and the 19th century architecture. When you say neighborhood commercial, that is the context of neighborhood. This development is a high-volume convenience store with a gas station. It is entirely incompatible with the small-scale residential nature of our historic neighborhood. The developer's traffic study is flawed and underestimates the impact of this development. At the gas station's access on Second Drive, the study assigns 0 trips to the vehicles coming from or going to the Village of Concord. 0. We are the local residents. We drive these streets, and we are clearly stating that the assignment is incorrect. Based on our local knowledge, which you should give weight to, since the traffic study shows no turning movements to or from the village, the traffic study fails to analyze the safety impacts to the intersections in the village. We don't have to pay for an expert engineer to tell you that their traffic study is flawed because it is self-evident. As such, the entire application in front of you is also flawed. We have both submitted GPS data to you. Mr. Mullins is claiming that his GPS directs him differently than ours. Ours is routing to the Easy Stop and his is routing from it. This is beside the point that we are trying to get to. When given the following situation, how would you react? You are a customer that's going to your house that's located somewhere off of Loop Road. Exiting the gas station, you use the second drive exit. Your choice is to go right, where there is already another customer waiting to turn across 4 lanes of traffic with 15,000 daily drivers. That car might be sitting there for a few minutes waiting on an opening to turn. Or you could go the other way, and this would, you would be driving essentially through what is the equivalent of the town of Mayberry to be on Loop Road in the minute that it would take you to wait in line just to get back onto Concord Road to drive down to Loop to be in the same location. Which choice would you make? If even one of you would give preference to going through the neighborhood, then surely many of the people in the greater Concord area would use the same shortcut through this village. The shortcut is even more advantageous for people who live in the same area that are traveling to the easy stop from Loop Road. This would require them to cross 2 lanes of heavy traffic onto Concord Road, then cross 2 more heavy lanes of traffic to get to the second drive and then enter the establishment. So you have that option, or easily going through the, cutting through the village and entering the gas station at the same point. In your packet, you have 2 pictures of the narrow roads in our neighborhood. Additionally, you can see that there are no sidewalks in our neighborhood, and there's ditches on the roadside. Figure B also shows where 2 Knox County school bus stops are on that shortcut. We are incredibly afraid for the potential harm, physical harm to our children due to the increased traffic from this easy stop. This is not an unfounded fear. Last year, a girl was seriously injured when, to avoid traffic on Concord Road, a truck cutting through Thornton Heights neighborhood ran over her legs while she was waiting for the school bus. When this project was in its initial application, 6B24UR, planning staff recommended condition number 6, the exit onto Second Drive shall be restricted to right turns only using a curbed island, not restricting entry turn movements from Second Drive. The Planning Commission ignored this expert recommendation and removed the condition at the request of the applicant. This was before the BZA overturned that approval, and which led to this application. A gas station and convenience store at this location will increase hazards for pedestrians, children, and residents who use these streets daily. It will draw traffic through the residential streets. The standards for use on review state that the development should be compatible with the size and location of the buildings in the vicinity. The surrounding vicinity is predominantly residential with small lot sizes and single-family homes. The Masonic Lodge has a ground floor area of 2,800 square feet. The closest residence is approximately 1,300 square feet. The proposed convenience store building is already larger than any building in the village of Old Concord, even without the fuel canopy. Additionally, there are no auto-centric buildings or structures in the vicinity of similar character as the proposed fueling canopy. This project far exceeds the scale of anything in the village of Concord. 7 pumps and 14 fueling stations is excessive and is designed for a high-volume traffic, not neighborhood convenience, which is prescribed by the intent of the commercial neighborhood zone. The fueling canopy alone is over 4,500 square feet, and it extends past the convenience store that is already nearly 5,000 square feet. This establishment has the appearance of nearly 9,500 square feet, when we all know very well that the zoning code says no single establishment should exceed 5,000 square feet in this zone. Planning staff recommended a reduction in the fuel pumps to 4. The Planning Commission ignored this expert recommendation and instead prioritized the commercial interest of the developer. In fact, before voting for the 7-pump limit, Planning Commissioner Lou Browning said, "Frankly, I think we ought to give him as many pumps as he wants." This shows that there's no regard for applying standards of being compatible with the size and location of buildings in the vicinity. The drive-through lanes behind the building remain in place. Using this area to accept deliveries behind the building would bring the loudest and biggest idling vehicles behind the building for long periods of time on the shared residential property lines. There's an excess of 22 unnecessary parking spots that are in the front of the store that could be used for the purpose of deliveries. Elimination of the 2 drive lanes would reduce excessive impervious surface by more than 5,000 square feet, reducing runoff and the size of the required detention ponds. It would leave all of the noise and fumes on the front side of the building and would create more space between the structure and the residential properties. The residents of Old Concord and Knox County have spoken loud and clear. 157 public comments submitted and over 1,600 signatures on a petition opposing this development. This overwhelming opposition highlights that this is not the right fit for Old Concord. Their opinion should be given weight. especially about the compatibility of the neighborhood character, because they are the neighbors and they know the character best. Mr. Mullen submitted data from the property assessor for homes across from Choto Waggles. His evidence shows that the values have increased over the last 9 years for those houses. The assertion that the values have gone up is true based on those appraisal numbers. However, inflation should be taken into account for those 9 years. Almost all residents in Knox County have experienced an increase in appraisal values during this time. There's no comparison to what the housing market in Knox County did during that time frame. Did these homes increase more or less than the rest of the market, and how did they compare to the rest of the neighborhood? I don't think that my firsthand testimony as a home buyer should be ignored. The entire reason that I moved to this neighborhood is its historic nature. The peace and quiet of the neighborhood and the uncrowded streets that are safe for our kids to bike and walk on, those things have value, which are not measured by a property appraiser, but valued by all homeowners universally. We respectfully ask the board to reject this application due to its failure to meeting zoning standards. However, if the board considers allowing this project, at a minimum, the following conditions must be required. Please reinstate the staff recommended right turn only onto Second Drive with curbed island to prevent cut-through traffic. Eliminate or reduce the area in the rear with the drive-through lanes. This will reduce noise, light, and vehicle fumes and eliminate much conflict between the homes and the Masonic Cemetery. Reinstating the staff recommended limit of 4 gas pumps instead of 7 to minimize traffic and impact on our community. In conclusion, the Planning Commission has ignored its mandate to impose conditions and limits, instead consistently removing the Knox County Planning staff recommendations, so that this developer can build an intense commercial use in an extremely limited use neighborhood commercial zone. This process is supposed to be about adding conditions and limits that make a use that is normally much too intense fit within the context of a neighborhood. We urge the board to listen to the community, not just developer, and make decisions that protect integrity and safety of Old Concord. Thank you for your time and consideration. I've got Kevin here that has a few remarks as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, do you know about how much time has been used? I want to be very respectful.
About 5 minutes, but don't feel pressured to make your case.
I won't go more than 5 minutes. Kevin Murphy, 4508 Murphy Road. I'm here to offer direct testimony about the significant adverse impact of the uses of convenience stores with fueling stations. I think that's one of the things that courts have ruled is helpful for a board when making their determination. First, I've visited 2 of the applicants' Easy Stop stores in Maryville. One I'll talk about in particular. It's one on Morgantown Road that has a very similar design. It's their newer style. It has 8 fuel pumps, similar parking and access points. It's on a corner. It does have a restaurant and a drive-through, which have been removed from this one. I visited that store in the morning. When I arrived, about 6:30 a.m., observed that there was a school bus that was parked out there. Engine was idling. Strobe light was flashing that they have on the top for safety. Shortly after that, a heavy dump truck pulled in with a loud diesel engine to the fueling bay. Air brakes activated, noise from that. And it stayed there several minutes. Another dump truck later pulled into a fueling bay and left it, driver fueled, or I don't know if they fueled, but they left their engine. They were there for 24 minutes with the engine idling under the fuel canopy. I heard noise. The customer went into the store, used their key fob to remotely lock their car. The horn honks, and all that's noise that's coming between 6:30 and 7:45 in the morning. So morning hours. That comes from customers. It doesn't, it's not emitting from the store itself, but it is noise and impact that's directly caused by the vehicle use that a convenience store, especially with a fueling station, brings in. And that's bringing in kinds of vehicles that aren't normally found next to the village of Old Concord or in a primarily residential area. You do have school buses, but not a lot of heavy dump trucks pulling in. Secondly, also observed a U.S. Foods delivery truck pulled in at 7:10 a.m. in the morning. We used one of the drive-through lanes on the back side of the building. A couple of minutes later, an HT Hackney truck pulled up, and that parked under the fueling canopy out front. The US Foods delivery truck on the back, it left its engine idling for about 5 or 8 minutes, so that was in back next to the residential apartments that are on the rear property line. So that driver was there for about 50 minutes, I think, or so. The HT Hackney truck hadn't left by the time I was gone. Secondly, I want to offer relevant direct testimony. I live on a National Register listed farm that's across from a Weigel's located in a CN zone in Knox County. There's only 2 convenience stores with filling stations that have been built in Knox County, and I live across from one of them. It is a little bit similar as well. It's got 8 fueling pumps. It's on a corner. It's got about 20,000 vehicle ADT. One thing, note, it doesn't have unloading space in the rear, but they have delivery trucks that pull in all the time to the side or under the fueling canopy, and they have successfully been able to deliver. And I haven't heard, I can't say for sure, but I'm not aware of any pedestrian or any incidents between delivery trucks and people or vehicles over there. So I haven't seen a safety issue. I'm over 800 feet away from that fueling canopy where my house is, but yet even at that distance, I hear vehicles that are parked over there. Particularly, I hear it when motorcycle engines start up and they love to open up their throttle fuel times after they've filled up their fuel tank. I hear car alarms going off. I think I documented that in my letter. Last couple years ago, I was out. I actually use a clothesline when it's nice, and that day, I just paid particular attention, and both times heard a car alarm coming from the Weigel's, that was going off over there. Another thing is when you have a vehicle used like that. Right now on Concord Road, it's vehicles that are driving by kind of at cruise speed. Well, now you're going to have vehicles that are coming in, stopping, doing their business, and when they leave, they're going to hit that accelerator pedal. And if they don't have well-muffled exhaust, which a lot of motorcycles and a lot of trucks don't have, then they're a loud source of noise. So all of a sudden, you're going to have however many vehicles are leaving that place, they're going to be accelerating away, especially if it's on Concord Road, and that's going to be a source of noise. When I visited the Weigel's on a wintry morning, I noticed that a lot of vehicles left their engines idling because it was a very cold morning. You could see the exhaust fumes, but you definitely have, my direct observation is that a convenience station was fueling, particularly in winter. You've got vehicles that are now idling right there. Finally, lighting. I know this applicant has submitted a lighting plan that looks pretty good. But my experience is that the lighting, especially from a convenience store, is obtrusive. I had to plant 600 plus pine trees to block the lighting from it. I want to note too that landscaping, 600 pine trees, hasn't done anything for the sound. And finally, that's my experience 800 feet away from a convenience store. I don't have what I would consider to be enjoyment of quiet and peace on my property if I was actually had a house that was across from that. And these neighbors in Old Concord are much closer than I am. So I offer testimony that there are significant impacts. Thank you.
Do you have anyone else wishing to speak? Any questions of the applicant from the board at this time? I have a question. The first speaker, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, but at the end of your presentation, you said if we approve this, you would like to see 3 conditions reinstated.
Yes, sir.
The right turn only on 2nd Street, the rear drive-through removed, or possibly reduced. I'm not sure if you meant to eliminate it altogether or just make it smaller. And 4 gas pumps instead of the 8 that are on, or 7, excuse me, that are on the plan?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. I'll hear from the opposition now. And you guys made it in 15 minutes flat? Good job.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Ben Mullins. I'm with the law firm of France, McConnell, and Seymour here in Knoxville. I have with me the principals of Easy Stop, Tommy Hunt, Mr. Trenton, and Julia. I also have people here from Cannon & Cannon who did the traffic study in this case, and they're available for questions as needed. On Monday, I submitted a detailed letter with exhibits on behalf of the applicant. I hope you all had a chance to look at it. 15 minutes isn't a lot of time to cover a lot of the issues that get raised in something like this. I appreciate that the appellant did get a chance to look at it as well, and so we can kind of focus in on some of those issues and talk about what's really important here. This application received the recommendation for approval by the Knox County Planning Commission. We're asking that you deny the appeal and uphold the approval by the Planning Commission. When we were here in August, we were primarily talking about the size of the building and the interpretation of the zoning ordinance, whether or not a firewall constituted two buildings that each should be 5,000 square feet. And you guys overturned that recommendation, and we respected that, and we went back and looked at, well, how can we take that feedback and come up with a gas station, a fueling station that's allowed in this neighborhood commercial zone that would meet the code based upon that interpretation. And we reduced the size. We lost the drive-through, which those are the two biggest objections that we had previously. And now the size of this building is within that 5,000 square foot limitation, and there's no drive-through restaurant associated with that. The biggest concern is compatibility and traffic. And I'm glad that the zoning map is up in front of you, as I want to touch on one point here. Under the neighborhood commercial zone, a fueling station is allowed as a use on review. You'll see that stretch of CA zoning along the south there that goes into the old Concord neighborhood, that's general commercial. A fueling station is allowed by right in that CA zone. So each one of those parcels that you see that is red would allow what we are doing without going through the use on review process. So when you're talking about the context of community and neighborhood, that zoning does allow what we are asking to do here through a use on review. So this is essentially a commercial node that fronts Concord Road. When you're looking at the context of the neighborhood, Concord Road is a major arterial road. They just spent $20 million in improving that road. Based upon the 2023 TPO traffic counts, there's over 15,400 vehicles on Concord Road every day. And what our traffic impact analysis, which we did have a professional engineer do a traffic impact analysis, it said that, you know, we're actually trying to serve that existing traffic. We're not a Buc-ee's. We're not a destination where people are going to come from outside the neighborhood to go to an easy stop. I'm sure they'd probably, like for that, but this is designed to intercept the existing traffic that is there, not to bring additional traffic. So any vehicles going into the old Concord neighborhood are the vehicles that would already be going there. They would then have the option to stop here, but we're not trying to redirect traffic in any way, and our traffic impact analysis demonstrates that we're not going to redirect traffic. I wanted to touch a little bit on the Google Maps because I saw their Google map and that looked off to me. So actually, I live in this area. The address that I used for Google Maps, 852 Smoke Creek Road, that was a residence I lived at for 5 years off of Woody Drive, which if you're familiar with that, loop road off of Concord, turns into Woody Drive. And loop actually then will make a sharp right and actually come down into the old Concord neighborhood. The loop address that they used for their GPS was actually further south into their neighborhood already. So if you do put Loop Road as it is, intersects there close to where Olive is, yeah, you will go through that neighborhood because that's the closest location. But if you're going through Loop and Woody, which is a major cut through, I cut through it often. I now live in Lovell Hills, not very far from this location now. I drive this Concord Road in this area weekly. So does my wife with her kids. If you are going that way into where all the people will be going over to Canton Hollow, then you're not going to go through their neighborhood unless you want to go through their neighborhood. There's no reason. GPS doesn't route you through that neighborhood, and the people who are familiar and use this road every day, they're not going to go there unless they want to go there. Sometimes I do drive through the neighborhood because it is a very nice neighborhood, and I don't want to have any impacts on that, and I don't believe that we're going to. But the point is, our traffic impact analysis prepared by professional engineers does not show any substantial traffic is going to be drawn through their neighborhood, which is the zoning standard in place, that we're not going to draw substantial traffic through their neighborhood. And we have anecdotal concerns, we have opinions, we have fears and speculations that that will happen, but we don't have any countervailing evidence that it will occur. Specifically, not the GPS, because when you're sitting there, I'm sitting there, actually, my vehicle, I wanted to point it straight down Second Drive, right where it starts to narrow. You can see in the picture there, I'm right in front of that fire hydrant there, and there's a stop sign a little bit behind me, and that's where the road narrows from 2 lanes down to 1 lane. So I set my truck right there and put in the directions. If I'm going to my former residence, how is this going to take me? And my vehicle's always already pointing there. You can see on the Apple Map screenshot, it has a little, fan where it shows which direction your vehicle is pointing. And the fastest way is to turn around and go down Concord and then make a right on Loop Road as it goes towards Woody. So there is not any countervailing evidence that this is going to draw substantial traffic through their neighborhood, which is a zoning standard that we have to apply here today. And they say the traffic impact is flawed, but they've not told us how it's flawed. There was a very similar case. It was actually before and after Mr. Moyer was with the Knox County Law Director's Office, 411 Partnership versus Knox County, where a use on review was overturned because they said, hey, the engineering reports are flawed, they might be wrong, but they didn't tell us how they're wrong. And the court says, well, you can't overturn in the face of an engineering report evidence based upon, someone's opinion, someone's, concern that this is a flawed without actually having some countervailing evidence. So yes, unfortunately, maybe it's not fair, maybe that's something that should be addressed when we do the Uniform Development Ordinance. But unfortunately, if they're going to say the traffic impact analysis is flawed, they need someone who is competent to provide that opinion, to show how it is flawed, and they haven't done that. Compatibility with the neighborhood. A couple of cases I wanted to bring the attention to. This argument is raised fairly often. And compatibility does have a legal definition. There was a case I wanted to draw everyone's attention to, Mullins versus the City of Knoxville. Not the same Mullins, it was 1983. I was not an attorney at that time. That case, though, was regarding a commercial development, and the neighbors saying, this commercial development is going to be completely outside the character of the neighborhood. What the court in Mullins said, and the city council, special uses and uses on review go to city council in the city, they overturned the use on review for that very reason. Well, it's out of character with the neighborhood. The neighbors don't want it. They're saying it's out of character. The Court of Appeals looked at the zoning map and said, well, this zoning says you can do this. The surrounding zonings in the area say you can do this. The community character is defined by what is allowed in that community by looking at the zoning map, not what's already there. So the Court of Appeals overturned City Council's denial based upon the same argument that the neighbors have advanced today. A more recent case, Demon versus Metro Board of Zoning Appeals, it's a 2011 Court of Appeals case, expanded on that thought, and it explained the difference between variances and uses on review. And it says, and I'm reading directly from the Court of Appeals, where the legislative body has authorized a use by special exception or conditional use, and this court explained that that's the same as a use on review. There are terms that are used interchangeably. Different zoning ordinances use different terms, but it's the same concept. Courts will presume that such use serves the public interest when located in a district where it is authorized. And it cites a zoning treatise. Classification of a use as one that is permitted as a special exception constitutes a legislative finding that the use accords with the general zoning plan, is in harmony with, and will not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood and meets a public need. A legislative finding that the neighborhood commercial zone with a fueling station is in conformity with the character of the neighborhood because they have made that finding and placed it. And that's not even taking into consideration the additional general commercial CA zoning that is all along their neighborhood, which allows this by right. If one of those properties wanted to move forward with a fueling station, it would not come to this body. They would just go get a permit with Mr. Elliott's office. There was a conversation about property values, and I'm glad that this came up. Property values is something that can be considered by this body. Section 4.10.17 of the Knox County zoning ordinance says that you can deny a use on review if it can be demonstrated that the use will not significantly injure the value of adjacent property by noise, light, vibration, traffic congestion, or other impacts which may detract from the immediate environment. Now, that is not on the applicant to demonstrate, to prove a negative, that we're not going to significantly impact those property values. If someone is saying my property value is going to be impacted by that, they need to come forward with some evidence, something that we can rely on and say, if we're going to deny something that is a permitted use in the zone, there has to be some evidence of that. So I did look at the closest neighborhood commercial zone with a fueling station with 8 pumps, and I looked at the property values there. They did not go down. Now, yes, property values everywhere have gone up, but the point is there has to be a significant impact to the value of the property before you deny it, and that's not demonstrated by the numbers. And they have not come forward with any evidence that is countervailing to that would rebut that assertion. They've not had a realtor come in and say, if this gas station goes in, my values will drop by 10%, 15%, 30%. They did not say they'd be significantly impacted. Mr. Murphy's talked about his impacts. Now, again, the light, noise, vibration, it's not just that those things will occur, but those things will occur and it will have a significant impact on property values. Mr. Murphy didn't tell you his property values were significantly impacted by this. That testimony is not before you. You look at the tax assessment for Mr. Murphy's property. Now, that was in a gas station that was approved in 2005 under different standards. I'm glad he appreciated we had a good photometric, because we do, because the photometrics, I don't think they even did a photometric back then, and Mr. Murphy shaking his head no. So it's a different case before you altogether. The fact that Mr. Murphy had negative impacts, that he is, I'm not refuting his testimony on, how he feels about the gas station being there, but he's not saying that has a significant impact on the value of his property. He certainly can't say that it will have a significant impact on the value of this property. What the case of Sexton versus Anderson County says is that speculations, fears, opinions that something may happen, that worst case scenario, those imagined horribles, that's not material evidence upon which to base a denial. And even though it's sincere, and I have no doubt all these people are sincere. I've met with them. I've been at that Masonic Lodge. I've talked to them. I've heard their concerns. Not many of them are happy with me because I'm still moving forward with this development. I get it, and I understand why they're concerned. I'm not trying to discount their concerns and how sincere they are. But when it comes to the context of a legal proceeding like this, there has to be more than just concerns in order to deny it. And we don't have that here today. They did submit a petition of 1,600 signatures. All those signatures were before July of 2024, back when we had a larger building and a drive-through. They have not submitted a petition with any signatures here recently. Now, I'm not saying that people aren't opposed to it. I know there's several people here behind me that are opposed to it. But the case law that drives how these decisions are to be made says that it's not the decision of this body to conduct a public referendum as the public attitudes of a property. It's Wilson versus Wilson County Youth Shelter. Now, gas stations bring out a lot of neighborhoods. If you're putting a youth shelter somewhere, there'll be a lot of neighborhoods that would be opposed to something like that too. It's not a popular use. But the point is, does it meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance? Is there any evidence that it doesn't meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance? And that's what we are looking at today. And so this is not a referendum. This is there any material evidence to base a denial on? And I would respectfully submit that there isn't. Gas station pumps, I'll hit on that very briefly. That was something that the planning staff recommended 4 gas pumps, 8 points of sale. We are asking for 7 and 14. McAllen versus City of Memphis is a Tennessee Supreme Court case in 1990 says that zoning ordinances must be exercised under existing standards. And our zoning ordinance doesn't have any standards to say how many gas pumps are appropriate one way or the other. And so to say 4 is better than 7 or 5 or any other number, it's arbitrary. And if it's arbitrary, it's illegal, and it can't be done. Again, that's something I think, there's several use standards. When you look at, Article 4 of the zoning ordinance, for uses permitted on review, several uses have very specific use standards, and that's something we probably need to look at. But as the zoning ordinance as it exists today has 0 standards for that, and so that can't be, I don't think that can be adjudicated or adjusted in any way. And there's no evidence that this is going to have any significant impact on the traffic or the property values. So if you're going to make a condition like that, then you have to have some basis for that. And again, that's just absent here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the neighbors' time. I would respectfully ask that you uphold the Planning Commission's recommendation of this use on review. Thank you.
Any other speakers for the,
No,
for
Chairman.
Easy Stop? None?
And not unless there's questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Go ahead.
I've got a question for you. When you all did your traffic impact analysis, did you all, who's represent that? Could you come to the podium, state your name and address, please?
Clive Sorrento, Cannon and Cannon, 1317 Willowwood Road, Knoxville.
Okay, my question for you is, when you all did the traffic impact analysis right there where the Easy Stop is supposed to go, did you, I should say, do any kind of analysis or checking to see if it was going to impact any additional traffic into the Concord neighborhood?
Okay, so the traffic engineer wasn't able to be here today, but I've been discussing with him. And the analysis was for intersections along Concord, North Shore. So it wasn't, that was the focus of the analysis.
Second drive was.
Second drive. And so we didn't, to be conservative with those assumptions, we assume nothing going for Concord. Not that we don't think, just normal traffic would be that right now, but we were trying to be conservative for our assumptions along Concord. That was the main thrust that was what we were told to study by the county and Farragut.
So in your study, you didn't answer my question. In your study, I understand what you did, and it was specifically for that area. But having sat there for however many hours that you sat there and however many days you did that, looking for a noticeable impact and additional traffic for that area, you should have been able to notice any additional traffic turning left going into the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could draw the attention, the traffic study itself, this is what it says: Second Drive in Knox County was one of the intersections that was studied. So yes, they
Right.
did look at traffic that was coming in and out.
That was my question.
Right, and it says the primary conclusion of the study is that the traffic generated from the proposed development will have only minor impacts at the study intersection. So, not that there's not gonna be some vehicles going back and forth, but those vehicles going back and forth would be
So there wasn't
minor.
an excessive amount of new traffic.
There was not an excessive amount of new traffic going back and forth. It was their
That's
conclusion.
the answer I was looking for.
Thank
Thank you.
I have a question for you, the traffic engineer.
Okay.
In your study, did you take into account or do an impact study on the traffic coming out of the development onto Second Street?
Again, we were trying to be conservative with the traffic going onto Concord. We were told to study that Second Drive and Concord intersection. So we didn't have any movements that way out left onto Second Drive in our analysis, because that was not, the thrust of the study was for the intersections along Concord Road.
So the answer, I think what you're telling me is you did not look at the impact of the traffic coming out of the Easy Stop onto Second Street.
There were don't think movements that way were studied in that traffic study. But again, I'm not the traffic engineer. I'm from the same company. I did the stormwater and the general civil site. But yes, I mean, we're not saying there's no movements there, because there obviously will be, there are movements there right now. We're not saying there are any extra movements that way.
No, sir, there are not any movements there now because it doesn't exist yet. I'm talking about the driveway, the proposed driveway coming out of the Easy Stop onto Second Street. Did you do any analysis of the traffic onto Second Street out of that driveway. Just Second Street, not Concord, Second Street.
Mr. Chairman, can I interject here?
Please.
Knox County does a scoping form for these traffic studies, and we asked them to assume all traffic out of the Easy Stop would make a right and go to Concord so we would know the impacts of the traffic of this store on Second Drive and onto Shodo Road. So they did exactly what Knox County asked them to do with the traffic study. Does that make sense?
I'm fine with why they did what they did. I just want to make sure that they did a complete job as far as telling us what the impacts are going to be on Second Street from this development. And so far, the answer is we don't know.
We did a complete study based on the scope given to us by Knox County.
Yes,
Yep.
I will stipulate that.
Yep.
But that request did not address the traffic coming out of the Easy Stop at that driveway onto Second Street towards the rest of the neighborhood.
That was not.
Because it assumed they were all going to go to Concord.
Right, based on the scope given to us by Knox County. So if Knox County had said to study those motions, then that would have been part of our study. Our scope is usually based on what the jurisdictions tell us to study, what intersections that are of importance to them at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Mr.
other
Chairman,
questions? Yeah,
I have a question.
go ahead.
Mr. Mullins, we talked about eliminating the drive-through and having a walk-up. Can you explain the difference between the two? I mean, I understand a drive-up, you're going to be in a car, but with a walk-up, what would they be buying or serving through the walk-up?
You'll notice a lot of fueling stations have like hot serve, they'll have like a little hot dog machine, pizza, things like that. And if you have any type of hot service food, it meets the definition of a restaurant under the NCIS standards, which is why the restaurant is included. If there's a walk-up window, there wouldn't be like there's not like a panel with a speaker and things like that. It's somebody can, buy through that window and get a hot dog while they're fueling their car. Somebody can walk up and buy a hot dog or something like that.
So I understand also that they were talking about possibility of putting picnic tables or whatever else.
There might be some outside seating that would be there in front of the store, that's right.
Okay,
But
and the
I think
people-
several places do things like
And the
that.
people that are walking up that's not fueling would be parking on that side?
I don't know if they'd be parking on that side, the cars would be there, there would be parking in that area and wherever available parking would be.
And the purpose of the drive around was to get your commercial trucks and things like that back
To
there.
avoid conflicts with the patrons that are coming in, the non-commercial vehicles that are coming in, so they have a way to go around without having to try to negotiate, that area where people walking back and forth between the fueling stations and the store and things of that nature. That's just safety.
Okay.
I have another question for Mr. Mullins back on the driveway. The right turn only onto Second Street? You guys decided not to do that?
We talked about doing signage for right turn only. We don't want to direct any traffic in there. There was conversations about a raised, like an island or something that would prohibit it. And we were concerned that, larger vehicles with larger turn radiuses, someone has a trailer, someone pulls in with their boat, that would create a safety impact with them driving over that island, which is why we didn't want to have the island. But we have no issue with putting, right turn only and putting signage and striping to prevent that and discourage that.
Are you telling me that you couldn't figure out how to
Mr. Chairman,
design
we've
that
also agreed it's
intersection for
requested
bigger vehicles?
neighborhood.
State your name.
Tommy Hunt, Callaway Oil Company, 1313 Turnberry Lane in Maryville. We also agreed it's across the neighborhood to sign the neighborhood use only on the road. And Knox County Engineering had asked us to improve Second Street all the way back to our property line to the cemetery. They had asked us not to do that, and Knox County Engineering agreed that we will have the road taper as rapidly as we can from the driveway. But the reason we asked and got the approval to not have the raised curb was if you're coming with weed eaters and blowers from yard guys coming in, their drag will go over a raised curb, and you're gonna be dropping weed eaters and blowers and stuff in the driveway. If you're bringing a boat in, And hopefully there'll be, folks with boats stopping by, since there's a marina right behind us. You'll be dragging that prop, if it's not raised up correctly, or your trailer lights over that curb. So we felt like for the folks coming in there to get in, it would be best not to. But we've agreed to put signage, as Knox County's request, and shown on the site plan, for neighborhood use only for anything beyond the driveway.
Question for engineering. The raised curb that we're talking about, is that not on the Easy Stop property at the intersection? It's not on Second Street, is that correct? It's just a triangular island in the intersection on their property?
Yes, yes, it would be in their entranceway on their property, not on our right-of-way.
So I'm at a loss to figure out what vehicles turning which direction you're concerned about.
He's saying people coming down Second and turning into that entrance would run across the,
Are you
If you're coming
coming from Concord to turn left into the into the
yes,
property?
that's correct, yes.
And you can't figure out a way to design that island so that that's not a problem? I'm pretty sure I could.
Well, if they, they set a raised curb.
Yeah.
If it's not a raised curb, but what they call a mountable curb, so that folks can roll it over, that wouldn't be an issue. But when we were saying raised curb, we thought, your inside trailer on a boat, lawnmower, anything is gonna be dragging.
And this is based on a traffic study and an intersection design
This
that
is
we
based on
haven't
me
seen?
having to repair one every day at Alcoa Highway.
I'm sorry, sir, but that, based on your counsel's testimony, that's not evidence. Do you have turning radius, turning templates showing?
Yes, we do. We have
You do?
turning radiuses on, that we showed, Steve and the planning folks, that the turning radiuses of a pickup truck pulling a mower unit or, anything like that would drag over the curb.
Steve, is this something we haven't heard before? It's news to me.
Hold on, we're looking through the package here.
I have a question. Okay, while they're doing that, I have another question for the attorney. And for you, what'd you say your name, what was his name again?
Tommy Hunt. Tommy Hunt, he's the principal. of
Mr.
the
Hunt, if you
Callaway Oil.
stand up, please. Question. If approved and under the new guidelines and building codes that you've got now for the new building, are there any future plans, if this building is built, of adding any additional, any additions to the building or putting the
No, we
drive-through
can't.
back in after it's been approved?
Not immediately.
What does that mean?
Well, it means there's space to the left that hasn't been developed yet, and so we don't know what's going to be used now. You see there's a very vacant spot. But there's no plans to convert the building, change the building. You know, it's already 4,900 square feet. We couldn't do anything else with it. We would have to tear it down and build something else to change that design in any way, to add any additional use to it. Those uses, if we were to do something like that, it would require a new application before the planning commission for a use on review. It would go through the planning commission and potentially end up back before this board of zoning appeals if the neighbors were unhappy with what we intended to do. I know that that was something that the neighbors raised in their letter. They're concerned about a bait and switch with the drive lanes being behind that, being a way to kind of backdoor a drive-through, and that just couldn't happen. One, there's no space in the building to do that, and if we could do a drive-through under the 5,000 square foot, we would have done that before and not have to, rely on the building code interpretation. So now, there's no plans in the immediate future to do anything. There is that vacant property to the left that we don't know what's going to be done with that, but that will likely have to come through another approval process as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, did y'all find anything?
We're looking, it's a very large file.
Would you mind if I have a few points of clarity, if that's okay? If this weren't such a large development plan with so much impervious square footage, there would be plenty of room to widen that entrance off of Second to allow for a sizable raised curb. to where vehicles pulling trailers wouldn't have any problem making that left turn without running over any curbs. Mr. Mullins citing the CA on the neighboring part of the neighborhood. I'd like to recognize that that's just a hypothetical that we probably shouldn't put much weight behind. As far as going with the character of the neighborhood, our character was recognized by the city, by the county of Knoxville, as its only H1 overlay outside the city of Knoxville. So to go along with that character is a recognized character by the county. And saying that we didn't provide a traffic study to counteract their traffic study, we couldn't afford a traffic engineer to come do a traffic study for us. We're a very small neighborhood going against a wealthy oil and gas company, so that wouldn't have been a very big possibility for us. I just wanted to throw those out there for your consideration. Thank you.
Don't leave. Got
Yes,
a
sir.
question? You all said that their traffic analysis was fraud. What proof do you
Flawed,
have?
not fraud, not fraud.
Flawed. Flawed, my correction, flawed. I've got flawed written down here. What, proof do you have?
We would have liked to have seen the.
No.
Oh.
I didn't ask you what you would have liked to have seen. I said, what proof do you have that what they did was flawed?
Yes, sir.
If I may, it deals with, and it's a very large file, so I'm trying to, but there's a section that deals with trip distribution and assignment that's on page 13. And that talks about how proposed trip distribution for this development was determined through a review of existing travel patterns, local knowledge of the study area, and proposed site location in relation to the network and engineering judgment. So it says how they determined to assign trips. I actually didn't, we now know that it was scoped based off of the requirements that they were given by the county about how how to determine that trip allocation, particularly at that entrance to the new gas station on Second Drive. They were told, assume no left, at that entrance, assume no traffic coming from the village area going in or out of that. They were told direct all of it to Concord Drive. Now, that isn't represented in the trip distribution assignment statement here, so that's not revealed in the traffic study. And the reason that having just assigning it as 0 there seems wrong is A, local knowledge of the residents. B, they have, so I want to point out, there's 2 sets of GPS screenshots that have been submitted to you. The one that the community submitted was based off of traffic traveling to the easy stop that would have to make left turns on Loop Road on Concord Road. They'd have to make a couple of lefts. The GPS screenshots submitted by the applicant were from that location back into the village of Concord. So you have screenshots from 2 sides, and the one from going to it in particular shows that traffic would probably, has a very viable path. And then you have local knowledge that said, don't like to make a left-hand turn at Loop Road onto Concord Drive. So that seems to be where the flaw is the assignment is 0.
Just one last thing, if you don't mind.
Please.
Every other example of convenience stores with fueling stations attached to them in the CN zone do not have an entrance to a neighborhood abutting that property. They're all standalone properties on major arterials. Just wanted to point that out.
Go ahead,
I have a
Steve.
question.
Mr. Chairman, we have now that turning template on the screen that shows the median, the proposed median, and the template that was provided to us.
Can you zoom in on it? I can't, my eyes are old like I am.
Yeah, the red's kind of hard to see, but they say that's a turning template with a truck and a boat trailer.
Right. But I will say this. I'm a retired registered engineer in the state of Tennessee, and I used to work for Mr. Cannon's father. And I've designed uncounted number of intersections for highways, roads, interstates, driveways. I know I can redesign that intersection so that that island can be built and that turning template will not interfere with it. And even if I thought they might hit the curb, I would make 2 sides of it mountable and 1 side raised. The side towards the right turn lane would be raised to ensure that the assumptions made in your traffic study were in fact accurate.
I just conferred with my client, Chairman Huff, and if that is a condition the board would like to impose, we wouldn't object to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Took a while to get there.
I have a question
Go ahead.
or statement. I mean, I'm looking over this C in neighborhood commercial zone, and it is, provides the opportunity to locate limited retail and service uses in a manner convenient to and yet not disruptive to established residential neighborhoods. Now, we haven't talked yet about the gas pumps. The 7 versus the 4 gas pumps. 7 gas pumps, based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers, brings about 250 to 350 daily trips to those pumps. 4, of course, would be much less than that. So I really think, and you can answer however, but that 7 pumps is pushing those boundaries of being small scale, low intensity, which is, I believe, the intent of a commercial neighborhood zone.
I understand your question, and, you know, when you looked at, I compared the other neighborhood commercial zones that have fueling stations, and all of them have, 7 or more. So there's a precedent that, that number is something that has been allowed in the neighborhood commercial zone in the past. And the figures you cited, yes, that, the fueling pumps do drive customers, does drive business. But again, we're on a major arterial that just went through $20 million of upgrades with 15,000 average daily vehicles. Those numbers aren't in addition to that 15,000. Those are what we hope to intercept from that 15,000. And so when you're looking at the context of the neighborhood, you have to consider that it is bounded on its west side by that arterial street. And so you have to look at it kind of holistically, not just, the neighborhood that's behind it as well.
Miranda, I'm sorry, did you have anything else? Miranda, can you enlarge that? I can't read the entire section. There's a sentence in section 3 well, that didn't help. Can you go back to where you were?
I could keep reading.
I think,
Sorry.
yeah.
I could keep reading.
Yeah, go
I've
ahead.
got it right
You
here.
got a copy of it?
I've got a copy of it.
May I borrow it?
Absolutely.
Oh, this doesn't have the first section, first part. It's the introduction.
Unicode doesn't want to act right when you zoom on it.
CN zone, yes. I will paraphrase what it says since I can't quote it. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. In section 5.38.01, general description of the CN neighborhood commercial zone. Development should be compatible with the character of the adjacent neighborhood. This zoning should generally be placed at street intersections, which it is, at the edge of close to the edge of the neighborhood as possible. The range of permitted uses is limited to those that are generally patronized and on a frequent basis by the neighborhood residents. Okay? By your own testimony, you're building this to serve the people that go back and forth on Concord Street, not the residential neighborhood.
As I said, the neighborhood context are the people that drive through there, the people that live on Loop Road, the people that live in, that is part of the neighborhood as well. I think you can't limit the neighborhood just to the old Concord Residents Association. The neighborhood commercial zone says it should be located or placed at intersections that include either a collector street or arterial street. as close to the edge of a neighborhood as possible. So that intersection and the traffic that drive by that intersection is the intent of the neighborhood zone to serve the residents there, so they have some place to go, not to, like a Buc-ee's, draw someone there as a destination spot, but to serve the existing traffic. So I said the neighborhood context has to be looked at in addition to the Concord Road and the traffic that's there as well. That would be what I believe the proper legal position to take on this.
If I may recap where I think we are, I heard 3 conditions that the neighborhood would like to see met before they could, I don't know what the right word is, be okay with this development. One you've agreed to, the right turn only island on the intersection at 2nd Street coming out of the Easy Stop. Thank you very much for that. The rear drive-through, we're talking about 2 lanes of pavement that are nowhere near the building, if I'm not mistaken, based on the, Amanda, can you bring up the site plan? Can somebody tell me exactly what drive-through we're concerned about?
I think they're concerned to see the 2 arrows to the north. That circulation drive lanes behind the building is what they're concerned about.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
The reason that those lanes are there is they are left over from the plans for a drive-through food establishment. That's the only reason they're in the plan in the first place. Now they're just wanting to leave it there as a convenience for their delivery drivers. And that's a major concern for us for noise pollution because those commercial vehicles will be behind the building on the back of our neighborhood instead of in front of the building, away from our neighborhood.
Can you live with 1 lane of traffic behind your building? Even if it's a wide lane?
It'd have to be wide enough to get the vehicles through, and I think they wanted to have, both lanes going around to avoid the potential conflict with the patrons of the building. They're telling me there's another turning radius. I hate to ask Steve to find another one that shows the traffic flow through that.
Okay, so you won't live with a single wide lane, but you'd like to have 2 lanes in opposite directions, which it seems to me like it would make your traffic congestion back there even worse. If you have 2 trucks, one coming in one direction, one going the other direction, how do they pass if 1 lane's too small?
Mr. Chairman, the turning templates are on the screen now.
So that inside, the lane closest to the building is pretty much useless for trucks. Why could it not be eliminated and just follow the turning template? Could you enlighten me on that?
Discussing, I'm sorry, I missed your question. My client was telling me that we're fine with making that just 1 lane. We still need it wide enough to accommodate the turning radius. And one of the reasons for that is, we have that 25-foot vegetative buffer between our property and the neighboring property as well. And so that is what constricted it. But we're fine with, making that just a 1 lane. So you can only go around it in 1 direction.
Miranda, can you put your cursor on the lane that's closest to the building? So if you eliminated that lane to the extent of where the turning templates show the vehicle needs to have, you could do that, right?
I believe we could.
I think
What?
that if there's a truck parked back there to do delivery, then you cannot get past it.
Yeah,
Garbage truck coming to pick up our garbage.
If you're going to testify, you need to come to identify yourself and.
The reason we wanted the width of that was for the garbage truck is coming through there as well. And like Mr. Murphy said, if we have early morning deliveries and you've got a garbage truck coming through, they've got to be able to get to it. And that's the width of the overall width of the corners of the width that's there. So the only difference would be there's room for the truck to park behind the store. So we left the lane the same width that was the county spec for it.
That's a good point. When does your garbage truck usually come to these facilities? What time of day?
I'm sorry?
What time of day do your garbage trucks normally come?
I have no idea for this area because there's different routes for different areas.
Not before 7 PM or 7 AM by ordinance.
And there's no way you can schedule your deliveries so that they don't interfere with the garbage pickup?
We weren't aware that the dumpsters were scheduled for the back of the building to necessitate those lanes. And originally, they weren't because those were food drive-through lines. Now we're being made aware that there are going to be dumpsters and trash trucks behind the building on the backside of our neighborhood. And those dumpsters are extremely loud.
Good point. How were you planning to get your deliveries and trash picked up in your original plan when that was going to be a drive-up?
The dumpsters have not been moved. That's the location they were from the very beginning.
What about your deliveries? Could they make those deliveries? You have people standing in the lane trying to go through the drive-up window in your original plan.
Yes.
Somebody else have a question?
I would just make the point, I guess the common sense point, and I think maybe we're getting into far too much speculation, but if you narrow it back there and create a bottleneck, I think you create more horn honking, more idling engines, and lots of things. I'm not sure that creating a bottleneck behind the building resolves anything, and we're getting pretty far off base, in my opinion.
That's why we would just like to remove them altogether.
Well, I'm afraid removing them altogether is not going to be an option because I'm not sure, but the fire department might want to have a fire lane back there. No?
I don't think they would need one. They would just need to have like the hose lay within 300 feet of the back of the building. So you could still accommodate that with access roads down both sides of the building.
But deliveries still need to be made.
Yes.
I'm sorry, deleting it altogether just wouldn't be practical.
Are there other gas stations in Knoxville that don't have a drive-through lane in the back for deliveries?
That's irrelevant. I'm sorry, it
Okay.
is. This building is designed for deliveries in the rear. Can I tell you? So one of your three conditions may not be met. Part of negotiations, right?
I hear you, but the vast majority of these developments do not have these lanes. So how is that a precedent set?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a statement. As a patron of that type of establishment, oftentimes I come in there to fill up on the outside lanes with my boat. And having that drive-through all the way around certainly facilitates getting a full-size truck and a 25-foot boat off the parking lot.
Now let's talk about the gas pumps. 7 dispensers with 14 points of sale. That's not a neighborhood gas station. That's a mini Buc-ee's.
Benny Buc-ee's has 40 or 50.
I said mini.
I did too. I'm not talking about the one in Sevier County, which is the largest. Again, looking at all of the gas stations that have been approved in the neighborhood commercial zone, you're looking at comparable number of gas pumps. I understand the concern that, that is out of character or but again, when a body is applying an existing zoning ordinance like this body is, the case law says it has to be done under existing standards. There are no existing standards that define how many gas pumps are appropriate. If you're thinking the gas pumps will increase noise, fumes, odors, then that part of the zoning ordinance under 4.10.17 is tied to, that would then also have to have a significant impact on adjacent property values. We're applying existing law, we're not making new law. If the legislature wanted to put use standards limiting the number of gas pumps in the neighborhood commercial zone, They certainly could do that. They very well may do that as they move forward with the Uniform Development Ordinance. But we can't just decide this feels too much versus this one, and that's not something I believe this body has the authority to do legally.
A question I have, Sure. I guess I'm no expert here. There's a lot of convenience stores, a lot of gas stations all through Knoxville. Many of us may drive around and think, how could we support another one? That's certainly not our question to answer here, but that leads in, as an organization, how do you all decide where it would be a good idea to place your store? How large the store should be, how many gas pumps? Can you just kind of talk us through that process?
I could answer that question
Sure.
generally, and if they feel I haven't done a good enough job.
Sure.
I mean, you're looking at average daily trips. So you have Concord has 15,482 average daily trips. And then you're looking, there's not a gas station within a certain radius of that. Then that is an area where there is a market for a gas station to try to intercept those vehicles that are already there. Did that answer your question? Okay, making sure.
And I would imagine there's some sort of general formula that you follow that, obviously, if there were 100,000 trips, then you would want more gas pumps?
Maybe. It depends on the size of the property that you would have available to you to develop. If you have 100,000 trips, then maybe this area, somebody would want to put a Buc-ee's here. But no, we're looking at a small, narrow lot, which has constrained the way we can, lay it out and develop it, and the existing traffic that is there at that intersection. So we feel, the last neighborhood commercial gas station that we had approved, which is on Johnson and Shad Road, which has less trips now than what Concord does. We had 8 approved for that one. So 7 to 8 is the number for this type of facility on this type of road with traffic.
But again, you said there, how many trips on Concord Road?
15,482.
Those 15,000, most of those 15,482 trips are not part of the Concord Village, the neighborhood that this is supposed to serve. Based on the zoning ordinance for the commercial neighborhood zoning.
I think you have to look at the context of the zoning. The neighborhood commercial zone says you want to locate a neighborhood commercial development at the intersection of an arterial street and a collector street, which this meets. The arterial street, I think, is essential to the context of the neighborhood, and those 15,000 people that drive by every day are part of the neighborhood.
No, sir, I'm sorry, but there are not that many people in the village of Concord that go up and down Concord Street.
Not in the village of Concord, but.
And this development is supposed to be to serve the neighborhood that it is adjacent to. Not the one that's down the street, not the one that's across the street, the one that it's adjacent to, which is the village of Concord.
I understand your position. I respectfully disagree with it. I think you're looking at taking the traffic that is there in the context of the neighborhood as well. That neighborhood isn't just the village of Concord. It would be the subdivisions that access this road routinely, which would include my own.
How many people live in the village of Concord? Plus or minus?
I'm sure I don't know.
Is it still on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we maybe have 33 houses in our neighborhood. Even in the greater Concord area, considered by the Knox County neighborhood maps, there are, I think, probably less than 5,000 in that population. At least 10,000 or more of those daily drivers are people that are going down to Choteau and over to Lenore City and all of the new development that is down along North Shore Drive, or they are coming to and going into Farragut or the greater Knoxville area to work. Those are all, it is almost all entirely commuters that drive on that road.
And I guess, and maybe this is a comment to the board, I guess we have to consider if there are 33 plus or minus residents in Concord, the village of Concord, what type of business on this list that's permitted or permitted with use on review could be supported by just those 33 residents.
Just wanted to clarify,
Yeah.
we're definitely not anti-development or
Sure.
anti-business whatsoever, but the scale of this proposed development is well outside of the scope of our size community and what our community wants. You know, anything, retail, cafes, diners, anything that we would be able to get behind and support, it's a broad swath of things, but a giant gas station with 14 gas pumps is just not something that goes along with a historic zoning neighborhood.
And to your credit, you've not said absolutely no to this one as long as it's scaled back with the three conditions that I mentioned earlier. I know you would rather not have any.
That's if the development is forced on us, yes.
If I may make a comment.
Go ahead.
I mean, we've heard several, actually on both sides when it concerns the drive in the back and other developments, other commercial neighborhood developments. Each development is unique in its own, and each neighborhood is unique in its own. So just because it may be a proper development on Johnson Road or on Shipetown or on another road does not mean it may necessarily be good for this one.
I believe we've probably whipped this horse enough. I don't know if anybody else has, I'm sorry, ma'am, you wanted to speak?
Yes, I haven't signed up to speak, but I have something very quick to tell you. May I do that?
Name and address, please.
Carol Montgomery, 1005 Olive Road in Old Concord.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to remind you that the village is from the mid-1800s, and that is its character. That is why people love to come and find a place to live, which is really difficult. A gas station is totally inappropriate. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment. In my career, I've probably been involved in the construction of 40 or 50 C-stores. And I think one of the things that we're confusing here is the number of islands versus the number of fuel dispensers. Typically, in a small neighborhood gas station, you might see 2 islands with, believe it or not, 7 fuel dispensers. There's usually gas on each end and diesel in the middle, which would be 3 per island, and kerosene over somewhere on the side. 7 dispensers here is not out of the ordinary. It's just a really great traffic flow. Also, I'd like to commend them on their design, on their lighting. To light that kind of area, they've done an excellent job in their design. That's all I've got to say.
Just to clarify, that's 14 points of sale. So there are separate hoses with that point of sale. So diesel, regular gas, I mean, there's going to be a lot.
Can you bring the site plan back up again, just so that we can refresh our memory? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm sorry, it looks like there's 7 islands?
Yeah. 7 islands, 14.
1 dispenser on each island? That doesn't make sense.
7 with 1 on each side, so it'd be 14. 7 and 14, yeah. Yeah, one piece of equipment, there's a hose on each side, so it's
That's
14
point.
points of sale. Just make sure we're all on the same page there. Yeah.
So you're gonna build 7 islands and put a dispenser on each island, 1 dispenser on each island?
1 on each side, so. Well, 1 dispenser, a hose on each side, so it'll be the same, the person that pulls up on the right and the person that pulls up on the left will have a hose. So there's 14 points of sale, but on 7 islands.
7 islands, 1 dispenser for each island.
2 hoses.
Yes.
Right.
Hoses. That is unusual, but whatever. Any other discussion? At this point, I'll entertain a motion one way or the other.
Mr. Chairman, after listening to all these different statements, I'm really conflicted as to the decision. I understand the concerns and the objections that the citizens have made. I have a problem being that a lot of the objections are speculations. and I understand the reasons behind them. I still have a problem as far as trying to look at the zone requirements with the CN zoning requirements, which allows for the filling station and for the restaurant to be included in with that area. I appreciate everybody that's been here, and I understand your concerns. I grew up in Bluegrass, and I went to Bluegrass Elementary. And so from that point, and I graduated from Farragut. So, and I went to school with people that lived in Old Concord. So I'm familiar with the area and have been in it many, many times. But when you consider the Easy Stop coming back with the improvements to the building as far as the size, less than 5,000, I think that at this point, I'd like to make a motion that we deny the appeal, and that Easy Stop is going to be required to follow the 11 recommendations that the Planning Commission had approved, minus number 1, which allows for 7 fuel stations, fuel pumps. And then that they would agree to put in the right-hand curb onto Concord, and with the sign that says, no left turn. And at the same time, I think that the 2 lanes behind the building is needed for the trucks to get back and forth and to not have a pileup back there that would just cause a bigger problem. And I think that, this is something that, like I said, I'm conflicted with it, but I think when you look at the requirements in the CN zone, they meet those requirements. So I make that a motion that we deny the appeal.
Second.
I'm going to second that motion, but with the same recommendations that the board has cited in reference to the community, that you do stand on your word that you will fix those. It is a conflicting, this is conflicting for both sides. Both sides stated what they thought was best for their community, what they thought was best for their business. I understand that, but progress is inevitable, no matter where we go, whether we like it or not. Sometimes we have to adapt and we have to get along, or we have to make sacrifices. And I hope that by us denying this, so that you all can move forward, that you all can keep your word, and that in the future, you don't try to backdoor anything and add on or anything, so that we don't have to come back through this and do this all over again.
Steve, did you have?
Yes, can we get clarity on the motion, Mr. Anderson? The intent is they can keep the 7 pumps in your motion, is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to say I appreciate what y'all have said about that. I did want to clarify that giving them credit for coming back at 5,000 square feet was mandated by this body. That's not anything that they've chosen to do. Right. This body forced them to do that. So I don't want to give them credit where credit isn't due. Thank you.
And before we vote, I do want to make one point. I personally strenuously object to the 7 dispensers and the 14 points of sale. That is obviously not aimed at the community of Old Concord. It is obviously aimed at people going to and from other locations, not within the community. And for that reason, I strenuously object to that condition. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
If we may clarify, what's part of your motion to require the curb for no left turns on the second?
Yes. Okay. Yes. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. No. I believe it's myself and Ms. Garrett. Motion carries. Thank you for coming. Moving on to 4B.
4B is a request of Andrew Baker for waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to 0.7 acres and waiver of lot width at the building line from 100 feet to 91 feet. The property is located at 8509 High School Road, CLT map 046, parcel 06701. Property is zoned AG in the 7th Commission District.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could hold your conversations out in the hall instead of in here, I would appreciate it very much. We have to be able to hear. Is the applicant here?
Turn that on.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any opposition to this? Go ahead and give us your reasons.
State your name.
State your name and address.
My name is Andrew Baker, 8505 High School Road, Powell, Tennessee. The reason is the lot beside my grandmother's house has been vacant. She purchased it a long time ago for the purpose of what we are doing now, which is we want to put just a mobile home there to live close to her, to help care for her. She's 87, but her house does not accommodate for my family. And so all we want to do is just put a mobile home there for the time being. And there's plenty of room. It's just the lot was zoned agriculture from way back, and it's 0.7 acres rather than 1, and 92 feet rather than 100. But there is plenty of room there for a home.
Any comments from engineering?
Chairman, I don't have any, but we can answer questions if you have any for us.
Any questions or discussions of the applicant? I'll entertain a motion to approve or disapprove either.
I'll make a motion that we approve the waiver of the lot intensity from 1 acre to 0.7 acres and waiver of the lot width at the building line from 100 feet to 91 feet due to the unintended consequences of the deed in 1991.
A second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. You have your variance.
Thank you.
Item 4C is a request of Knox Mob for waiver of rear yard setback on Lot 1R from 35 feet to 30 feet. Property is located at 4716 Brown Gap Road, CLT map 039, parcel 096. Property is zoned AG in the 7th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition? If you could come and state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Hahn. I'm with True Line Land Surveying, represent the client, 8880 Cedar Springs Lane, Suite 106, Knoxville 37923.
I think we'd like to make a request that we combine all three of these issues into one issue, and
I'll make that motion.
motion's been made to combine. Second. All approved, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, we're gonna make this a 3-for-1.
Absolutely.
As it will.
So, as is reflected in the plat, we've got 3 lots here. These were previously subdivided under a former surveyor the client had consulted with, and that had been approved, who he also assisted them in placing the house on the lots, which was apparently done so in error. As you can see on Lot 1R, the house has been placed already. The 1 and 2 are existing currently, with a plan to place one on the 3rd lot. As you can see on Lot 1R, the house has already been set non-compliant in the rear by the matter of about 3 feet. They called us to just kind of help them come before you guys and be as compliant as they could be. But without the variance, I believe that's the holdup for the sale and the CO. So, on the one R, we just need, your grace to, shorten our rear setback. And then, 2R and 3R, the minimum width from, as we're adjusting those sidelines back there to get those homes at least in the setbacks on the sides. But we'll need a variance to shorten the minimum width of the lot from 100 to 70. But as mentioned, the homes are there, so we are coming to you with more of a sorry, and it won't happen again.
Going back to 1R, can you put your cursor on the area where the nonconformance is?
Bottom left corner, sir.
There. Okay. And on 2R, the nonconformance there is what?
It's the width there from where we're, yes, right there.
The width, okay. And the rest of the 1R is wide enough, 2R is not, right?
Correct.
Okay, and what's the problem with 3R?
3R is, we're needing to bring that down to 70 as well. The width, the lot width, and, and there's a second variance request on 2R, the sideline on the left side from 10 foot to 8.
On the left
2R,
side?
the middle lot, on the left side of the home.
On that side?
Other side.
The other side?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
As mentioned, we've adopted this and are just doing our best to help them be as compliant as possible. And we're working on the development going forward. So you should have our word.
Does the same person own all 3 of these pieces of property?
This point,
all 4 of these pieces of property?
at this point in time, I believe they have 2 of the lots already sold, upon approval of this plat revision.
But it's still owned by the same person
Yes, sir.
currently?
Yes, sir.
Steve, since it's owned by, all 4 are owned by one person, they're the same entity, can they revise the lot lines, the interior lot lines?
I would say yes.
They can just do that, right?
Yes, they could.
Okay.
And I hate to be the fly in the ointment here, but they're also going to need a variance on lot 4R because the easement area makes them go under 1 acre. It's currently non-conforming, but with this plat, it's going to make it worse. So that they're going to have to come back next month for a variance for lot 4R as well.
If I may, we've been counseled by the planning commission already that they would look fondly on a rezone for 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
If planning, because the taking out of the access easement is a subdivision reg requirement, not a zoning ordinance. So if planning's okay with it, then we'd be okay with that.
They have already came and said that they would look fondly on a rezone just for that lot. The rest is the variance.
Based on what I see, there's nothing you can do by adjusting lot lines to fix the problem on 1R.
Not 100%, no, sir. Without purchasing property from the rear lot, which is not.
But on 2R and 3R, you can adjust property lines and fix those problems.
We would be looking at not the width. I don't think, without losing more of 4R, I assume.
Yeah, you would lose more of 4R. But you're going to get
That's up to you, your guys' recommendation. We'll do whatever you guys think.
Well,
as of right now, the layout, this is submitted to the planning and based on your guys.
you understand variances are essentially the option of last resort, which this isn't. You have other options. You can adjust property lines and avoid the variances. So I know it's easier for you perhaps to get a variance, but the ordinance says this is if it's the only thing, that we can do to give you the use of the property, then yes, we would do that. But this is not the only solution.
Yeah, by all means.
State your name and address, please.
Excuse me, good afternoon. My name is Eduardo. 9041 Executive Park Drive, Knoxville. I'm from Knox Mob, the owner of lots 1, 2, and 3R. The lot 4 was sold recently. So if we have to change lines of lots 4, it would be needed to talk to the new owner. And we can do that, as he said, if you wish, but it would make things more difficult in our view. That's why we're trying to resolve this here in good faith and assuming that we made the contractors made a mistake there, and this is it. I appreciate.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Would you be willing to postpone for 30 days so you can investigate that possibility?
To adjust the, to adjust lot
Yes.
4?
We will do whatever you think is best. We would like to fix this. We have an offer for the house, for purchase, for the housing lot 1. And if we postpone this, we will lose the offer. The buyer will not buy.
Could we approve 1 and table 2 and 3?
Yeah, if we could approve 1 and 2, and
Or at least 1?
we concentrate our efforts on 3, then it would help us a lot.
1 and 2 is just a variance on the setback, which changing lot lines won't fix. So yes, we could vote on that today. 2 and 3, since you don't own 4, I guess maybe they don't have an option on 2 and 3 anymore. New information.
No, I don't have new information, so.
Okay, in that case, a variance would be an acceptable alternative. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll go ahead. I will make a motion to approve on Lot 1A, the waiver of the rear yard setback on Lot 1R from 35 feet to 30 feet at 4716 Brown Gap Road. A motion to approve at 4724 Brown Gap Road, the waiver of the side yard setback on Lot 2R from 10 feet to 8 feet, and waiver of minimum lot width from 100 feet to 70 feet. And at 4732 Brown Gap Road to approve the waiver of minimum lot width from 100 feet to 70 feet.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? No. You have your appeal, your applications approved for those 3 items.
Thank you all for your time.
For F.
4S is a request of Cynthia Gentry for waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to .74 acres to divide 9409 Depot Street into 2 separate lots. The property is located at 9409 Depot Street, CLT map 036, parcel 033. Property is zoned AG in the 7th Commission District.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is.
Can you push the little button, turn your mic on?
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Cynthia Gentry. My address is 1013 Holiday Lane, Sevierville, Tennessee.
You have my sincerest apologies for having to sit here all this time, but could you go ahead with your application and the reasons for it?
Well, the two pieces of property are divided by railroad tracks. There's about 70 feet from one property to the other property, so they don't connect in any areas. So I was just trying to get them to divided into two parcels of property, so I could potentially do something with the back lot that is the smaller one, and I have had a survey done on it. If,
Okay, do you know how many acres are in both of these pieces?
the one that I just had surveyed, which is the back one, is 0.73 of an acre, so it's 3/4 of an acre.
This is in the ag district, is it not?
Correct, and it's split, the front parcel is in the planned growth area, the rear parcel is in the urban growth area, so it's another one of these where she doesn't have an option, PR wouldn't be supported on this small of a parcel, and RA is not allowed in the rural area, so you either have ag or PR, so this piece of land is stuck without this variance. She couldn't subdivide it any other way.
Okay. And it's, being a part of the triangular pieces, it's pretty much useless. Who's, okay. And if you care to make a motion.
I will be glad to. I will make a motion to approve the waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to 0.74 acres to divide the 9409 Depot Street into 2 separate lots due to the division caused by the Southern Railroad.
Second.
Motion, go ahead.
It needs to be 0.73 since she has a survey showing it 0.73.
Revise that to 0.73.
Thank you.
Motion's been made, revised, and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No. You have your variance.
All right, thank you.
G.
4G is a request of Milton Gennard for waiver of peripheral side boundary setback from 35 feet to 10 feet. The property is located at 8300 Rudder Falls Way, CLT map 145, Group DB, parcel 012. Property is zoned PR in the 4th Commission District.
Ashley, is this yours?
Yes, sir. I'm very familiar with this area. I used to go fishing down there a long time ago. I know where this house is, drove over there the other day. It is far enough away from the street, nobody's going to see it, and based off of the topography of the area where he has suggested to build the structure is the only place on the property that is buildable.
Sorry, I went out of order, but if you could give me your name and address, please, for the record.
My name's David Rosser. I'm an architect representing Milton and Louise Gennard. I live in Jefferson City, 1212 Sarasota Drive, Jefferson City, Tennessee.
Do you have anything to add to what my colleague has already said?
He probably says it better than I can, so I appreciate that. And I think that was pretty concise. It's a garage addition, and it's agriculture to the south. His is PR, and so we're just asking for that 35-foot periphery boundary to be reduced to 10, which seems to be consistent with most side setbacks and to be reasonable.
The adjacent property, that ag, is it in any plan to be developed, or does anybody know? Is it some you know the names better than I do.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. Let's see, what's the? And it's in the rural area, so it would be developed at a max of 2 per acre.
Okay. Ashley, you're making a motion, I assume?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the peripheral boundary setback from 35 to 10 feet.
Second.
Motion's been, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, the reasons, I guess you kind of need to give a reason.
The reasons being topography.
Thank you. Motion's been made, seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 4H is a request of Holly Solis for waiver of rear yard setback from 35 feet to 22 feet. The property is located at 8632 Widener Road, CLT map 138, parcel 165. Property is zoned AG in the 9th Commission District.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Holly Solis, and my address is 8634 Widener Road, Knoxville, 37920.
Is there any opposition to this? Go ahead and give us your reasons for wanting a variance.
Yes, sir. I'm requesting a variance of the rear setback from 35 feet to 22.6 feet. The reason is due to an unfortunate situation with a licensed contractor that we hired who agreed in our contract to obtain the building permits from the county, and also agreed to get the survey of the four corners of the building. My husband and I obtained the survey of our property beforehand, and we have recently discovered that our contractor did not get the proper permits for the building or get the survey for the building placement. I reached out to the county immediately and stopped work on this project so I could resolve this issue. The plans of the building have been looked over, and I was told that due to the floor plan having a bathroom and kitchen area that we would need to classify this building as a single-family dwelling, and originally its purpose was an accessory building. And in that case, also, when working with the contractor, we chose the location of this building due to the steep topography of the property, as well as the recommendations from Knox County Health Department for the septic situation. He let us know where it would need to be and where he recommended the placement of the building. And so due to the issue of changing it from accessory to single-family dwelling and the topography, we would like to kindly request this variance.
Steve, I assume that 6.3 acres will support 2 dwellings in the ag district?
Yes, they only need 2 acres to have 2 dwellings.
Is this mine?
How about that?
I'm not immediately familiar with this, but I can certainly understand the reasons. Looking at the map, there's the adjacent property owner on that side. The property is so narrow at that point
Yes, sir.
that it's quite unlikely that they would ever build anything back there.
Yes, it's approximately 50 feet, that section, that pie-shaped property, to the other property's driveway that you can see there.
Right. Unless anybody's got any further comments or conditions, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this as written, because of topography and variety of issues beyond the property owner's control.
Yes, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? You have your variance.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
4I is a request of Grant Denton for waiver of front yard setback from 40 feet to 32 feet. The property is located at 2751 Bailey Farm Drive, CLT map 104, parcel 048. Property is zoned AG in the 6th Commission District.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Grant Denton. Address is 2704 Cross Lane Road, Knoxville, Tennessee. First off, want to thank you guys for your time. That was a little bit of a show I wasn't expecting earlier, so this was fun. I do want to state this address has recently been changed. If you guys are not familiar with it, this is the old Ball Camp Pike Road. So even as I saw Bailey Farm Drive, I was like, hold on, what's happening here? But essentially, we bought this property a few months back and got a survey after the fact, and there are 2 structures you can see. There's actually 3. The third one is a barn, but there's 2 homes, a home towards the south side and home towards the north side, and they're just sitting too close to each other right now. So I think the variance is asking for something like 8 feet, but we're just looking to subdivide the properties into two separate lots.
Miranda, can you pull up the zoning map? Where's the front yard? Where's?
It is. Okay, so I'll give you a little background if you want it. This was a TVA under the power lines. These houses were actually moved back in, before I existed in this world. And so I imagine back then they didn't have the same setback that we do now. But it's a long gravel driveway back up to both of those houses. So the road is towards the south side. You can see Bailey Farm Drive there.
But you're way more than 40 feet from Bailey Home Drive. I'm not sure I understand.
Well, the setback is between the two structures, if that makes sense.
So those are side yard setbacks.
This is a new property line he wants to have, but this house will only be 37 feet from it to make this one have the required 35 rear.
Are we saying the driveway is is that gonna be that's a private drive, right?
It'll be a shared easement.
So the side of the house is the front of the house in this situation?
But it's gonna be a flag lot when it's done, right? So your address is still be Bailey Drive, right?
Yeah, so the surveyor we had conducted said in order for us to subdivide it, you'll have to get this variance. So that is why we're here. If we don't need it, happy to say we don't need it. Music to my ears, but there's a flag lot, but there's not a currently permitted, I guess, driveway at that new flag lot. So maybe that's the concern.
But the issue is the distance between the houses? Is it?
The front structure, that's a rear property line. It's going to be within 35 feet of the rear property line. So he needs a variance for that, to reduce that rear property line down. Yes, by our interpretation.
So it's the rear setback.
I was never good with left and right.
It's for this rear house. This property line is this house's front yard and this house's rear yard.
Seriously.
I'm sorry, so I said that wrong.
Yeah. Can you zoom in on the section that needs the variance, just so we can all be on the same page?
So the rear house, that's considered a front. So what is the setback there?
40.
So they have a required 40-foot setback and they can't meet that.
So I think what you're saying is if they move the property line closer to the street, then you could maybe meet the front yard setback on this lot, but not meet the rear yard set.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And we could probably stay here all night and debate if that's a front or a rear, but that's.
I'm compelled to ask for a motion to approve just because it hurts to think about what front side.
I make a motion to approve the waiver from a front rear side setback from 40 feet to 32 feet for lot 13R.
A second. Motion's been made and approved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you. You got your variance.
Thank you to the board, and thank you to Steve for his persuasive ways.
4J is a request of Leanne Hovius, Representative Holly Williams, for waiver of front yard setback from 25 feet to 6 feet. The property is located at 1807 Lytton Hall Lane, CLT map 145, Group PJ, parcel 002. Property is zoned PR in the 4th Commission District.
Hopefully the front
State your
yards.
name and address.
Yes, please.
Great. My name's Holly Williams. That microphone scares me. My address is 5404 Blue Ridge Drive, Knoxville, 37919. And I'm the representative for my client, Leanne Hovius.
Is there any opposition to this?
Not that I'm aware of.
Very good. Give us your reasons for requesting a variance.
Great, thank you. We're requesting a variance to allow a reduction of the front yard setback from 25 feet to 6 feet for a master bedroom addition on this residence. This residence is on what I would consider an exceptionally irregular lot shape, and it's exceptionally shallow for the width of a typical house from the cul-de-sac side. This is sort of a funky lot condition where we have a corner lot that is next to another corner lot that's next to a key lot behind it. So there's really nowhere for this client to go. This client would like to have a master bedroom addition on the side so they can age in place, and there's nowhere else on the property for the master bedroom addition to go. It's a funky scenario because although the property is addressed to Litton Hall Lane, the structure was built originally facing Faulkner Lane. So hence the conundrum that we have there. And so that's why we're asking for the variance.
Very good. I apologize, I was not laughing at you.
You can laugh all you want.
You mentioned key lot, which I think there may be only 5 people in the world that understand, but you may be one, but nevertheless. Whose district is this?
This is mine. I've driven over there. I've spent some time looking at it and going through the case file. It has the support of everybody that will be affected by that, all the property owners on the cul-de-sac and the other corner. I don't have a problem with this. It is one of those weird corner lots we all love. And I would make a motion to approve this based on the irregularly sized lot and shallow lot.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? You have your variance.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
4K is a request of Coleman Sullivan Turner Homes for waiver of right side setback from 10 feet to 8 feet and waiver of waiver of front setback from 10 feet to 7 feet. The property is located at 1879 Lake Glow Way, CLT map 105, group AJ, parcel 085. Property is zoned PR in the 6th Commission District.
Please give your name and address for the record.
My name's Coleman Sullivan. I live at 2418 Glen Meadow Road, Knoxville. And I'm here on behalf of our build team at Turner Homes, requesting this variance for our entrance sign. A little backstory, we typically have a standard sign that we try to use at all of our neighborhoods. It's somewhat of a trademark, something to recognize a Turner neighborhood by. Here's a special exception. The right-of-way was a bit more narrow here. We have the sidewalk and a retaining wall with a privacy fence to contend with for our sign. So what we're hoping to do is a sign that will be hung off of a single 2x2 pad with a post coming off of that pad and the sign hanging off of that post. So minimal impact, just something that can still be seen from both sides of the road if anybody's familiar with the area. You come and go past our entrance pretty quickly. So we don't have a lot of room to work with. So just trying to put it somewhere where it's still visible but yet not causing any safety or visibility issues.
Ashley, is this yours? No. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I'll just share with the group real quick. I went by the property. Everything he's touched on is accurate. There's a privacy fence, a sidewalk, and a culvert. And it seems like if you did 10-foot setbacks, that you would encroach on the sidewalk and the culvert. Seems like a no-brainer. Does anybody have? I'll let you do it, Chairman.
Any other questions or comments? Ashley, John, if you'd like to make a motion.
Yes, if not, I'll be happy to make a motion to approve the waiver of the side setback for a sign to be reduced from 10 feet to 8 feet, and for the front setback to be reduced from 10 feet to 7 feet due to the complications from the sidewalk and the culvert that are already in place.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No, you have your variance.
Thank you.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First, second, and third. All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.